Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Dynasty Heat Seekers Tuesday night live stream. I am your host, Bryce Frazier. You can find me on Twitter at RotoHeatBryce. I'm trying to be a little more active on there. Still not very good at it. But you can always follow me on the Facebook page. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well so you get updates when we go live. And the Facebook page is RotoHeat Dynasty Fantasy Football. Get in there. Anybody can join. Lots of questions that always get asked on there. You can ask questions, get other people's opinions. It's just a great community. And I'm joined by the always reliable Anthony Leone. Leone, how are we doing this?
Mostly reliable. I'm doing great, man. Week 2's in the books. Week two is always my favorite fantasy week. I can't really explain why, but I think it's partly because the build up to the season always seems like it comes so fast. But then after week 1 and then week 2 comes, it's like it came so fast. Like that whole week just flew by, and it's just a friendly reminder, like how quickly the fantasy season really moves. So I've always loved week 2 for that reason, and happy to talk about a lot of these guys here on the video today with you.
Yeah, I somewhat agree. I prefer like week 3 and 4 because I think we get to see, 2 weeks in, things could be coincidence, but I think if we're seeing certain production out of players after 3 or 4 weeks, then that becomes a trend. So easier to follow, I think, and maybe your offseason predictions were solidified at that point, whether it was they were solidified to be wrong or right, or somewhere in between, I guess. But with this week, obviously injuries hit the NFL again. But it's Tuesday. You probably know about most of them already. But one thing happened is Mike Evans got kicked out of his game. I'm sure most of you know that, but he did receive a 1-game suspension, and he is appealing that 1-game suspension. But with the way he, conducted himself and how he got suspended, I don't see that appeal process going well for him. I think it's just he's gonna have to sit that 1 game and ideally come back the week after in prime Mike Evans form. So what is your take on this Mike Evans suspension?
I think it's what I expected. I thought he could have even gotten more than 1 game, but he got 1 game. I think it was expected. I don't expect him to win the appeal process. I think it's safe to say he's going to be out this week. But I mean, he was a little banged up too. It's really not the worst case scenario. I mean, at least now he's going to get a full, week, 2 weeks of rest. It's kind of like an extra little bye week for Mike Evans. So I really don't think it's the worst thing possible here, given all the facts of the situation. So it's kind of a bummer if you're counting on him this week, but again, he'll be back soon. Not something to really worry about.
Yeah, I definitely could use him in a league where I've got a really competing roster, and I was hindered obviously by him not playing a whole quarter. James Conner and Jerry Jeudy, kind of you can assume how that week ended for me. But luckily, I got some depth in that league and could probably plug in Chris Olave for him or something like that.
You were probably blown out in that game, right?
Honestly, I had a chance going to Monday night, but I was down, I think, 27 points, and I had both my quarterbacks and Devontae Smith. Just happened to be both my quarterbacks are Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins. So he had A.J. Brown as well. So I didn't have, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith probably pretty much canceled each other out. So if my quarterbacks could have just scored 27 points, I would have been all right. Yeah. But that unfortunately did not happen. And I felt bad because the first half of that Titans game, I had the option to put in Mac Jones on Sunday, but that's a tough matchup against the Steelers as well. Titans usually play tougher opponents better, but yeah, it did not go well. But luckily that sitting Mac Jones for Kirk Cousins really didn't bite me in the butt. It still would have the outcome would have been the same, so I can live with it. Let's get into this week's topic. It might be a little bit premature, but it's never too early to talk trade talks. And this is guys that we're targeting in week after 2 weeks. This is Dynasty League, right? So these are guys that more than likely are underwhelming these first couple weeks. So you can maybe buy him cheaper than what maybe their hype was in the offseason. There's some veteran guys on here, a lot of rookie guys that had a lot of hype that now maybe are being forgotten after these first 2 weeks of just maybe no production at all or just very little compared to what people were expecting. So, Leonie, I'm going to actually toss it over to you. We're going to start with quarterback.
Yeah, let me just add here. Week 2 is the perfect dynasty trade week. If you see a team in your league that you thought would be competing and they're 0-2, you know they're freaking out. And yes, toward the end of the season when teams are eliminated, you can find good trade partners if they're going to try to rebuild for the following year. But having a team 0-2 doesn't put them out of contention in most situations. And that means that if you have a backup quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, someone a little bit older or not as dynasty friendly in that sense, they're still on the table for most of these teams. So I think trading right now is the perfect time, especially if they have a pretty good roster, but some guys have fallen short the first 2 weeks. I think this is a good opportunity to do a trade. So at quarterback, I want to start. Well, both of my guys are kind of similar in some sense, but I'm going to start with Zach Wilson. He hasn't played at all this season. He had a very disappointing rookie season last season. But we've seen now with Joe Flacco that the offense does have a pulse. And Garrett Wilson has looked great. Breece Hall is kind of coming together as well. Elijah Moore still looks good, getting a lot of targets. And I think Zach Wilson's in a spot where he's valued lower just because he's already hurt. He isn't playing. He had a bad rookie season. And I think you can get him at a pretty good discount right now. So he's my first guy to be targeting, especially in Superflex leagues. If you need a second or third quarterback, I think he's a pretty good target. And even if you're rebuilding, he's the perfect type of stash to have for next year, just because we don't know for sure. The team said they want to make sure he's completely healthy. And as long as the Jets are still winning games, they're not going to rush him back. So I think especially if you're rebuilding or you have a team that is looking for a lot of depth, I think Zach Wilson is a great grab at this point in time. Bryce?
I agree 100%. Unfortunately, I was not on the Garrett. I was a little bit late to the Garrett Wilson hype train. I didn't get there until about the last week of preseason. And dude, he is the real deal. Like, he is going to be a guy in this league that is productive. So when I see guys like that are producing at a high level already with Joe Flacco, like, he was involved week 1, had 8 targets. You don't really get targets as a rookie unless you're getting open, right? So he already had 8 targets, and then obviously just had a phenomenal week this past week, sealing the game for the Jets in the comeback victory versus the Browns. So if I get a gunslinger in there like Zach Wilson, who I still think has some growing to do in the NFL, and people are probably, like, people that drafted him might just be like, I did not like what I saw year 1. He's already not playing year 2. He didn't look great in the preseason. I think you can get him for way cheaper than what he was drafted at this point in time. And I think that you'd be getting a great return in value. So Zach Wilson is definitely a guy that I agree with. I'd be targeting him in dynasty formats for the right price. Absolutely. And those that are asking questions in the chat, we got some really good ones in there already. We'll answer those as soon as we get through our list of guys. We got 2 for each position group. We should breeze through it probably within the next 20, 30 minutes. So stay in here. We will answer these questions.
Yeah, we will get to all those questions, and any more
all
you
the
guys
questions
put.
will be answered.
Yeah, and any more you guys have, just put them in there. I'm happy to help you guys out.
Absolutely. Just put them in there. We go through order of when they were posted. So you got Zach Wilson. The guy I put is another Wilson. I chose Russell Wilson. The Broncos offense has looked pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's like they have their moments, and then it's just like drives just don't, like, they get them started and then they just don't finish them. It seems like there might be a play calling issue in reality. They need to get Javonte Williams in the run game more involved than he already is. And they got to let Russ, like, really throw the ball more than he is. I think that the best days are in front of him. He didn't play in the preseason at all. It's his first year with this new team. Like, it's not going to be pretty right out the gate, especially when they didn't have any playing time together in preseason games. So give them a little bit of time to adjust. Like, Russell Wilson is a very, very good quarterback. Cortland Sutton and a healthy Jerry Jeudy, which is rare to find, is more than a capable wide receiver duo for him. His best days are coming up ahead. You might find some people that are in a situation where they're maybe rebuilding, that you could get them for the right price. I think it might be a little bit hard to get him off contender because they might think the same thing. Like, if he can pick it back up, he can maybe take my team to that next level. But if I'm in any sort of situation where I'm contending for the next maybe 3 to 4 years potentially, I'm going to try and grab Russell Wilson at this point in time. What are your thoughts on Russell Wilson?
Yeah, it really reminds me of the situation a couple of years ago. New quarterback comes to a team, have a lot of troubles to start the year. Let me have me find out. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Team eventually gets it together and goes on to win the Super Bowl. Who's that sound like? A couple of years ago. Does that ring a bell?
A couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago, new quarterback or a quarterback goes to a new team. They start the season a little rough, and then they go on to win the Super Bowl.
Was it Tom Brady?
Tom Brady. That's right.
Okay. I didn't know if he started off bad, but yeah.
Yeah, they started off the same way. Everyone was kind of questioning, like, oh, no, does Tom Brady need Belichick? What's going on? It's like, like you said, they didn't really play in the preseason. It's like, just give it a little time, have a little bit of patience. It'll be fine. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%. I think Russell Wilson's a great buy low. I think in redraft, people are going to be dropping him. I would not drop Russell Wilson. Just have a little bit of patience, and I think everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Go into your next guy.
So my next guy, man, it hurts right here. Trey Lance. You guys watch the show. I'm a 49er fan, and see him go down. It's like you kind of knew he was going to get hurt at some point, but it sucks that it was so early in the season. I do think a lot of teams are done at this point. I mean, in the Superflex League, we were talking about this all offseason. You and me both were on the same page. It's just too risky to invest that much capital into a round 1-2 quarterback that hasn't proven it yet. Now, I think Lance is still going to be good. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And now he has a full year to think about what he's going to do. And, if you're rebuilding, I think he's the perfect type of quarterback to get right now. I think this is his lowest value has ever been. And, I mean, look, you already weren't really you and me weren't really anticipating a huge year anyway. So if you're rebuilding, I think you can get him for a very affordable price right now, unlike any other previous time. And if you're playing for next year, or even if it's a one quarterback league and you're sitting okay with maybe an older guy, maybe like let's say your quarterback's Matt Ryan. In a one quarterback league, it's not the best, it's not the worst, Carson Wentz. But if you can just shelf someone like Trey Lance for next year at an affordable price, I think Lance is a great get right now. What do you think, Bryce? I know you're always kind of off on Lance a little bit. Is this still not your cup of tea given the situation?
Yes and no. So I guess I agree and I disagree on a couple of things. So what I agree with is I think Trey Lance has the potential, right? Like his ceiling with the tools that he is that people think he has is current Jalen Hurts. Would you agree with that? Like an elite rusher that has also the big playability in the pass game. If he can polish up some, like Jalen Hurts has gotten better every year, right? So if Trey Lance can get better every year, we would think, okay, maybe he could become something like Jalen Hurts. That's kind of like who I compare him to in the league right now with the way their play style. The problem for me is I think that it's going to be hard to get Trey Lance cheap. Like I'm thinking that if I drafted Trey Lance last year, I probably spent a top 3 pick, probably. So, and I got all pumped up this offseason. Okay, then I finally get to see my pick go out and play. And he underwhelmed, right, in week 1. But it was a horrible situation for really any quarterback. It's not like Justin Fields went out there and lit it up. And, he's probably picked a couple spots after. It was a monsoon. You really couldn't open up the full playbook in a situation like that. Then he gets in here in week 2 and really doesn't get to show anything. So it's like you still invested all this draft capital, right, in that 2020 class, and you're not getting to see, or 2021 class, and you're not getting to see it back. So I think that if you can get him, sure, but I think it's going to be difficult to find the owner that is willing to go ship him yet. Is what I think, because if they got him in 2021, they probably had a top pick, so their team wasn't very good. They probably didn't see any return on the players that they got in that draft, so they probably weren't very good this past season. They might have got a top pick, but is that one pick going to make them great this year? Probably not. So they might be terrible again this year, and they might just want to get a top pick again. So it's like it feels like I might be overthinking it, but I just think it's going to be difficult to get him for the right price still. That's the only thing. But, I mean, if you can, it can't hurt to try.
Okay.
At Stafford, 2 weeks in a row, he's been kind of bleh, right? I mean, last week he kind of picked it back up. I think he got about 20 fantasy points, but it wasn't like what we were seeing last year. Like he was getting consistently 25 up. I'm thinking right now people are worrying about his elbow, but he's dropping back and throwing the ball way too much for it to be a major problem. It might be something that just continuously requires like pain management, right? Week in and week out. He's probably getting a shot, probably didn't feel a thing till the next day. But Matt Stafford is in kind of another situation where he's only got really one returning guy, and that's Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp is doing what Cooper Kupp did last year, right? But it's going to take some time to get Allen Robinson in the mix. Van Jefferson's hurt right now, so now they got a different number 3 receiver out there, which I think is really funny because people are calling him a Cooper Kupp decoy because he's a tall white guy that is number 18, so it almost looks like Cooper Kupp, but he has the long hair. I think Matt Stafford's numbers are going to get better this year. Again, this is a situation where if like the guy that has Matt Stafford is not a contender, he definitely would be willing to sell him for the right price. Like if he is a contender, you're probably not going to get him. So it's more of a situational guy that I'd be targeting. Like I'm looking at leagues. Okay, this guy's 0-2. He's got Matt Stafford. Let me go send a first round pick and see if I can get him. Something like that. What are your thoughts on Matt Stafford?
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%. I mean, there's really I don't disagree with you on anything. I think you hit the nail on the head on Stafford. I think he's a great buy candidate. Hasn't started the year very strong, but I think at the end of the day, I think he'll have a good season. He'll be a quarterback 1. I don't have any concerns with Stafford this season.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead and jump into your first running back.
All right. Yeah, for me, it's J.K. Dobbins. I mean, he hasn't, again, very similar to kind of the Zach Wilson thing. You know, hasn't really played. He didn't play at all last year. He hasn't started this year. I think a lot of people who have him are just kind of down on him. I mean, he hasn't played. He's just on their roster, but doesn't do anything. He just sits there. So I think he's a talented back. Everyone else in that backfield, like he has no competition for target for rushes outside of Lamar Jackson, who obviously is a really good rusher in his own right. But J.K. Dobbins, I mean, look who else they have back there: Kenyon Drake, Mike Davis, and it's like Gus Edwards is hurt. Like I think J.K. Dobbins, he practiced last week. I'm confident he's going to play this week. I wouldn't start him this week. I kind of want to see how he does first. But I think right now is a good opportunity to trade for him. Just that. Especially in redraft. I mean, people took this guy 4th, 5th round, and he's just not there. So I think in both Dynasty and redraft, J.K. Dobbins is a great get right now. Bryce?
I agree 100% on J.K. Dobbins. Listen, this guy, I mean, what a perfect situation. I mean, not really a situation, but the events that have happened since he got injured could not be better for someone that has gotten injured for fantasy value. So J.K. Dobbins gets hurt, then Gus Edwards gets hurt. I think they both were they both ACL tears? They might have both been ACL tears or something. But then nobody produces at a high level the entire season for the Ravens backfield. And then we get into this next season, and neither of them are ready yet, which J.K. Dobbins had full practices last week, but I think they're taking extra caution. They want 100% a full week of practice, like not just a couple of days. They want a full week of practice at 100% before he goes in there. Because I think when he goes in there, I'm going to start him because I think he's going to get like 10 to 15 touches at the minimum. Like I think they're going to just put him right back in the fold. The way he kind of was that like at the end of his rookie season. But man, if you are able to get J.K. Dobbins, like let me ask you, would you trade a 2023 first for him?
Yes.
I would too. Like he was super efficient in his touches his rookie season. Like if he's coming back, I want him on my roster and starting. So I agree 100% that just nobody has produced for them at the running back position since he's been gone. So that he's easily walks right back into the spot as the starter, which is amazing.
And he has a vegan diet, just like Tom Brady. So dude's gonna ball.
Yeah, so did Arian Foster, but he was hurt a lot. Just so you know, just so you know, he did. Hey, have you ever listened? A little bit of a side. Have you ever listened to Chad Johnson or Ocho Cinco, whatever you want to call him?
Yes.
Talk about why players get hurt because they don't eat bad enough. He's like, you need to eat McDonald's.
Yeah. No, you got to eat junk food. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, look, listen, I never got hurt. I eat junk food every here and there. Like he didn't say all the time, but he's like, you got to eat junk food. I love that. So maybe eating healthy. Like it's great for Tom Brady, but he didn't get hit that much. So my running back, Cam Akers. So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a guy that has a lot of Cam Akers. And week 1, I did not like what I saw. I don't think everybody was shocked, right? This past week he got 15 or 18 touches, I believe.
He got a lot.
15 carries and 3 receptions.
Yeah, I believe he got a lot of work.
Huge difference, right? I mean, he got more touches than Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson was the starter, I will say for now, but he was on the field more. He was still active in the pass game. I think that talent will eventually take over, and it'll become it's going to be a 50-50 split, I think, for a while. But I think if I had to pick one of these running backs to get the hot hand, I'm going to choose Cam Akers to get it because I think he's just more talented. So if I see him getting things rolling, when they get in the red zone, they do like to try and run the ball in there. It's not like they want to pat any stats or anything like that. I think you could get J.K. Dobbins for extremely cheap right now. I would be paying probably within a late first for him.
Yeah.
So you don't think so? A late first for Cam Akers? I think
it's too risky. I think it's too risky. So? I mean, he rushed the ball last week 15 times, only got 44 yards. I mean, he's still.
Who did they play against? Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta. It's just it's a little too risky to pay that much for him. I think he's a good get if you can get him at a really good discount. I don't think you can after his volume this past week. But it's like, man, ever since his Achilles injury, he just hasn't been efficient with the ball. And that continued again last week. I mean, obviously it's better than 3 carries, no yards, like week 1. But I mean, Darrell Henderson had 10 rushes for 47 yards. Cam Akers had 15 rushes for 44. Like, it's kind of scary. He's not even at 3 yards a carry. And Henderson can do it. Why is Akers lagging behind here? So I agree with you. If you can get him on a good deal, I'm okay with it. I think there's enough upside there, but I think it's pretty risky given what we've seen since his injury.
All right, that's fair. A first might be a little bit risky, but if he starts taking a majority of the carries, you probably would have wished you would have paid it. I think you could probably agree with that. If he gets 18 touches a week, I'd pay a first for a running back in that high scoring of an offense to get that many touches a week.
Yeah.
And I see him being high scoring for the next probably couple of years. So, it's debatable. If you can get him for an early second, that's a smash.
Yeah, I would trade a second for him too.
Yeah, I would too. A late first would be still something I'd be like, maybe we'll see. Give me your next running back.
My next running back is Kenneth Walker. I think you and I both agree on this. Maybe not as much as I do. I mean, I know you're a big Rashad Penny supporter, and we had that argument last week, and I am standing behind everything I said last week about Rashad Penny. Kenneth Walker, I mean, both of them didn't really have a good game this week against the Niners, although the Niners is one of the best, defenses in the league. So what do you really expect? But
Right. Yeah.
I think we're going to see kind of Kenneth Walker just kind of find his groove, up his carries, and I think he could easily compete for a starting role this season. I guess the only concern is if a team drafted him early first round this year, it might be a little bit too early to get Kenneth Walker yet. So I understand that. But at the same time, I think you could still get him for a 23 first. And if you're a running back needy team, I mean, I would do that trade. I mean, if you're just a middling team and have a hole at running back, or maybe your running back 2 spot, I think a 23 first for Kenneth Walker is a good deal. So I just think that people are just kind of a little bit too down on him because of his early injury in this season. And I think it provides an opportunity to get him if you missed out on him in your rookie draft. Bryce?
Yeah, I think the reason I disagree is you already said it. It's just I think that it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be hard to get him for like cheaper than what he was drafted for, right? Like if you drafted Kenneth Walker, I mean, a lot of people had him going in the first the first 5 picks. Sometimes, like I know in that couple drafts, I saw him going second overall.
He went second in most of my 1 QB league drafts.
Yeah, I agree too. So it's like, you invested that much draft capital. Oh my God, capital.
People are in love with the 23 class, though. I mean, I think if you have a mid to late first for him, I think you could grab him for that.
I would rather have the first. I think. I just think that the only reason is because I just don't think Rashad Penny is going to go away. It's not like Kenneth Walker and Rashad Penny both went out there and Kenneth Walker did better. They literally averaged the same amount of yards. They couldn't establish a run game because it got kind of ugly first and they had to pass. And then when they did try and run the ball, but like you said, the Niners front 7 is just stout. Like they just don't allow many rushing yards. So it's like they didn't really get a chance to open up the run game. So before I maybe tried to buy Kenneth Walker, it's like I'd want to see what that offense would look like at a full powered run game. Like if he got like 4 or 5 touches and like maybe Rashad Penny got like 15, did Kenny Walker get like 5 to 7 yards per carry? Then that's when I'd be maybe looking to buy him because that's efficient. That's being efficient on few touches. When you are that efficient on few touches, you get more and more touches. So that's kind of the situation I'd want to look for if I were to buy a guy like Kenny Walker, who was drafted early in a lot of these drafts. So it's probably going to be hard to pry him off some people. So yeah, that's the only reason. I like him as a player. It's just the value right now is probably a little bit too steep for me until he has maybe a couple more weeks of struggling.
So for you, it's basically, who would you rather have, Kenneth Walker or Cam Akers? For you, it's Cam Akers, and for me, it's Kenneth Walker. And is that a fair? What do you think?
I think those are pretty comparable for me. Like, I think about it. The situation they're both in are probably 50-50 backfields at best, right? Like, I think Cam Akers has a better chance to get a higher percentage of carries this year. But I also I worry about the situation that the Seahawks are in. Like you're giving me a Cam Akers that's on a way higher scoring team than Kenny Walker, who is on a team that's probably going to struggle to score a lot of touchdowns this season. So
redraft it's Akers for me, but I'm saying Dynasty.
Akers only 23 years old.
Have you faded off Penny since last week, since we last spoke?
I didn't look too much into it. Like I knew this is a bad week. It's like now if you see a running back going against like Buffalo or the 49ers, you're probably like, well, this isn't going to be good. Like
Buffalo.
It's very few running backs that are going to be successful unless they're getting PPR value. They got to be receptions.
All right, fair enough.
I will say I think the Seahawks play Atlanta this next week, who also had pretty stout run defense against the Rams. But we'll see. I think that they'll be able to have more rushing attempts. So I'd like to see Penny on a few more attempts. When you only get 6 carries and nobody else gets more carries, that doesn't really concern me.
Sure.
So Josh Jacobs. Now listen, I've been the biggest, I don't want any part of Josh Jacobs, right? But that was because where he was valued at before the season started. I did not like him at that value. After these first 2 weeks, I do like his value a lot more. Now, do I think he'll be a Raider next year? No, I don't. But I do see him as a starting running back next year. There are plenty of spots that are going to need running back next year. Just off the top of my head, it would not be surprising to see him land at some places like the Cardinals, maybe the Dolphins. They're just 2 teams right there that have way more touch. Still have a lot of touchdown upside, like the team he's on right now, that he'd easily walk on as the number 1 back, in my opinion. I think he's had 2 subpar 10-point weeks. He doesn't have a lot of PPR value, which is why I think you could get him for the right price. Like, I'm not sending a first-round pick for him at all. But man, I will send a second-round pick all day for a guy like Josh Jacobs. I think they're going to get him more touches. I think that the Raiders have got to have a more balanced approach moving forward, which means that I think he'll be more involved with the offense. And he's still young. This guy came into the league, I think, at 20 years old or 21. I think he's only 23, maybe 24 years old. Still got plenty of years left in him for the running back position. So, what are your thoughts on Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, he's 24. He'll be 25 next season. I agree with you 100%. I don't think he's going to have a good season. We both were not too excited about him this season because of Devontae Adams. But I agree with you. Next year he very well could be on a different team. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a really good running back, potentially in a really good spot that will potentially throw him the ball and get him some PPR points. That he only got 1 catch last week. It's just not that offense is not going to cut it for him this year. So I think he's a good middling type team to try to get him. I don't think he's going to win you a ship this year, but he can set you up for a nice 2023 season. So I agree with you. I think he's a good buy target in Dynasty.
Yeah. Even if I was a competitor, I'd be sending out second-round picks for him at this point because, injuries are crazy.
And you can use him next year. At worst.
He has value as a flex position. I don't really even like him as a running back too. Like, I like him as a really good flex option personally, but I'd be sending that all day. I might send a couple after this stream. I'm going to just talk myself into it. So let's jump into wide receivers. Alec Pierce. Now, if you don't know who he is, it's the rookie wide receiver for the Colts. Put up a goose egg week 1, dropped a touchdown. He got I think he was in concussion protocol, which is why he didn't play this second week. But, people are kind of like hyped up on Ashton Doolin a little bit, and I think that's going to get brought back down to earth because week 1, Alec Pierce was in the 3 wide receiver sets over Ashton Doolin. They play the same position. Now, he's a rookie. It's going to take a little bit of growing pains, of course. But with him being on the field more, that produces more opportunity. And I think he's still going to be on the field more. Ashton Doolin might have earned himself some more reps as well. But I would imagine that Alec Pierce continues to be the starter. Michael Pittman Jr. is going to quickly make a name for himself in the league. Like, Matt Ryan loves him. I've kind of a guy I've been getting in the offseason a lot, especially in redraft formats. But teams are going to have to start focusing on Michael Pittman Jr. That opens the door for a lot of number 2 receivers. And Alec Pierce has the athletic build and tools to be a good receiver. He's a tall guy, very fast, and he does run really good routes. Just obviously has to catch the ball, especially when it's thrown to him in the end zone. I think this guy's being forgotten after basically not produced a single point in fantasy so far these first 2 weeks. I think you can get him relatively cheap. This is actually a guy that I'm looking when I'm making trades in leagues. I look to add him as a throw-in if I can. And a lot of these situations, because people invested like a 3rd-round draft pick in him. I think a lot of these times, maybe a late second. So I think you can get him thrown into maybe some deals that have some bigger name players. Alec Pierce, you like him?
Yeah, I was kind of worried you were going to say, you would pay, more than feel comfortable. But as a throw-in, yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think you're right. I think he's going to get lost in the fold. He has gotten lost in the fold. Same with like David Bell. I mean, I think these are guys that you can get kind of thrown into trades. And so, yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's a good shout.
Yeah, go into your next wide receiver.
My guy is Darnell Mooney. The Bears have looked dreadful this first 2 weeks. You and I both talked about the first game last week, just with the monsoon. Just throw the game out like it doesn't even count. So if the first game doesn't count, when we're going to look at the game from Sunday night to count, that's fine. He had a bad game. I think he only had one catch or maybe even just one target. But even still, I mean,
catch.
Dude, it's just one game. Like, it's just one game. People overreact over one game. And I just don't get it. Like, I really don't get it. It was one game. Like, you already said last week you're going to throw out the first game because of the monsoon. And then so he has one bad game and people are like bailing ship on Darnell Mooney. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So Darnell Mooney, I think if people are really that worried about the Bears offense, I think you can buy Justin Fields cheap. I think you can buy a tight end cheap that we'll talk about later. Hint, hint, hint. And I think you can get Darnell Mooney cheap. I was so tempted just to put all Bears on my list today because even David Montgomery is super efficient. He looks really good with the ball.
He looked good Sunday night.
Yeah, and it's like everyone's down on the Bears, but it's like, you know what? It's just one game. Like, people just need to chill out and just, be a little bit more patient, man. So for me, it's Mooney. If you have someone who's out on Mooney after him putting up a couple dud weeks, I think he's an easy get right now. Bryce?
100% agree. Darnell, I mean, this is two horrible situations for Darnell Mooney. Terrible week 1 game with the weather. Terrible matchup week 2. Listen, I don't think Darnell Mooney's some like super stud wide receiver, right? Like, in the certain matchups, he's going to do bad. And Zaire Alexander is one of those matchups. Like, the Green Bay secondary is no joke. They're a very talented group. So I really like Darnell Mooney for the price right now. I just struggle with what I would be willing to pay with him or pay for him. Like, what would you trade a 23 first for him?
Maybe a late first. I don't think you need to. I mean, that's
I don't think so either.
I don't think you need to.
I mean, a second's a smash for me. Smash, right? So yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to pay that. I think you could like group him into trades as like for to make it seem like someone's getting like a way better value out of the wide receiver. You're looking to upgrade it running back and downgrade at wide receiver, and you can make that gap look better with how Darnell's played so far these first 2 weeks. But I'm not too concerned with him. Very young guy, young offense that's got a new coordinator, young quarterback. So that's going to get put together. Darnell Mooney is going to have much, much, much better weeks this season. Don't even be putting him on your bench yet unless you really have pretty good studs in front of him. So 100% agree on Darnell Mooney. And my next guy is a guy I really, really like, and I've been sending out trade offers for him, Kadarius Toney. Again, if you're not really following the situation for Kadarius Toney, you're missing out. Kadarius Toney has did not practice pretty much most of the offseason, like in training camp. So when he did finally get healthy, it was near the end of pretty much right before the season started. He was not on the field much week 1. I think 7 snaps and touched the ball 2 times. This last week, the whole offense just looked bad for the Giants. Daniel Jones isn't the answer, and eventually that will get fixed. But Kadarius Toney is a talent. When the ball is in his hands, you just almost have to watch it to understand what I'm talking about. He's just extremely explosive, extremely talented. They're going to get the ball in his hands more. It might not be this season. Like, it really might not be. I wouldn't pay. There's no way I'd pay a 23 first for him, but I would pay a 23 second for a guy like Kadarius Toney, whose floor is whose ceiling is just sky high. It just might take another year for him to be maybe put in the right situation for him to maybe start to touch that, start to get close to that ceiling. So what are your thoughts on Kadarius Toney?
100% agree with you. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head again. I mean, Tony is just oozing with upside.
Yes.
He's had a very slow start to the year. He's been a little banged up. We know that's kind of his MO, but he just has so much untapped potential. We've already seen a lot of it last season in inconsistent spurts. But he's definitely a guy that I would be targeting as well. I think that's a great shout.
Jump into. We'll finish up with tight end. So go ahead and jump in.
No, well, I'll just quickly.
You got another receiver.
My other wide receiver is Jamison Williams. This will go quick. Look, he's a rookie. He hasn't played. He's not going to play for the first 8 weeks. It really kind of reminds me of Odell Beckham his rookie season. The Lions' offense looks really good, surprisingly really good. Amon St. Brown has all the hype in the world in Detroit. I think in a way it has kind of dampened the Jamison Williams hype. I think you can get Jamison Williams at a really reasonable price. He was already getting drafted at a discount because you knew he wasn't going to play early this season. So I just think that Jamison Williams is just not a name to forget about, and I think you can get him for a really fair price right now.
I agree. If you can get him for a price cheaper than what he was drafted at, I would definitely be going over and getting him. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the real deal. He's not going away anytime soon. He's getting peppered. I expect that to continue even when Jamison Williams first comes back, but I think that might help out Jamison Williams. So okay. I really like it. Let's jump into tight ends.
Yeah,
I'll go into both of mine. Go ahead.
Do you agree with both of mine? Kmet and Pitts? Or no?
Yeah.
Kind of?
Yes, but I still think it's going to be real difficult to get Kyle Pitts on a discount.
Okay, so let me do mine then, because I think Pitts has started real slow. I do think you can get him for a little bit of a value. If not, then you can't. But I think Pitts is just that good, worth the investment. And then Kmet, we've already talked about the Bears, so it's like I'm not going to let one game and a monsoon change my opinion on a player. So I think we both agree on those. I think yours are a little more interesting. I'd like to, unless you have any quick comments on mine too, I'd like to have you kind of go into yours.
Yeah, if I was trying to get like Kyle Pitts, I would expect somebody would you'd almost have to get him from a competitor, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not competing and he's not helping you right now. Maybe you got Darren Waller on your bench, in your roster, who's a little bit older tight end that is producing right now. Maybe try and upgrade and get the youth there.
Or like Kelsey or something.
Yeah, maybe. Kelsey, I think is more of like even personally. I would just do that straight up.
Yeah.
Realistically, if I was not competing, if I'm competing, I'm keeping Kelsey.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're on the same page. That's good.
Yeah. Kmet's a smash for me too. TJ Hawkinson and Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz. Let me start with Dalton Schultz. I think it's a guy you're going to have to wait on. I'm not really looking for him to have the production that he had when Dak was quarterback, but you might be able to find someone that's worrying about it, like because Cooper Rush is the starter for now. But when Dak comes back, I think that he's just going to get peppered again. Like he just sees a lot of targets from Dak Prescott. So I really like Dalton Schultz and he just got injured, so you might be able to capitalize on that a little bit. I just really like who he is as a player. I think that he can go to a lot of teams and still be pretty productive. Like I don't think he's a top talent like Mark Andrews, George Kittle, those guys or anything like that. I think he falls barely outside of it. But I still see him having just like really good top 10 tight end top 8 tight end upside for the next few years. And I think you can get him at a discounted price right now with the quarterback situation in Dallas. And then TJ Hawkinson, and this kind of goes to your point earlier. The offense is just like really good for the Detroit Lions. Like Jared Goff looks pretty good. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks freaking awesome. DeAndre Swift is great. Jamal Williams comes in and does his part. Like the offense is just firing on all cylinders. Like one of the high-powered offenses right now in the league. And they didn't play a slouch defense week 1. They played the Philadelphia Eagles week 1, who have a very good defense. So it's like don't count out the Detroit Lions. Like I think they finished as a middle of the pack team this year. So when I have a team scoring that many points, I'll take the tight end off him. And I think TJ Hawkinson is a very talented tight end. I think you can still get him at a low price because he hasn't really produced to like maybe what people are expecting him to have produced at this point. So, what are your thoughts on those two, Schultz and?
Yeah, I'm with you on Hawkinson. Where I kind of have a hold up here is on Schultz, and the reason for that is because I think Schultz is really just a product of his situation, kind of like how we talked about with Dawson Knox.
I can agree with that too.
And I'm kind of worried that if you go out there and invest in Dalton Schultz, and he's on a different team next year, I think he's on a 1-year deal right now. I mean, he could very easily.
He's franchise tagged.
Yeah,
he got franchise tagged.
Right, so he's on. I mean, he's on a 1-year deal essentially.
Yeah, you're correct.
And so he could very easily be in a different spot next year that is, very unfavorable. And that's why I would be willing to pay a cheaper value on Hawkinson than pay up for Dalton Schultz. Because
I would also rather have Hawkinson over Schultz for sure.
Okay.
And
I just think Schultz is more expensive right now. That's why
that's fair.
And I'm just kind of off Schultz just because of the Dawson Knox syndrome, kind of like we talked about.
I think Schultz is more talented than Dawson Knox. I watch a lot of the Cowboys. He has good route runnings. He's got good hands. Like, he's just not flashy, right? Like, he doesn't have like the big play stuff. Like, he's just like a little bit faster version of Jason Witten. Like, that's just kind of how he looks to me.
Yeah.
If he finds himself in an unfavorable spot next year, that would be concerning. But ideally, I would assume with him, he would want to be paid. So that is a possibility. Like, when they're veterans, they might want to go like kind of ring chasing a little bit. You usually find yourself in a better spot.
Yeah, he's going to be going for money. Yeah.
I think so too. I agree. So
yeah.
All right, that's it for our trade targets. We got plenty of questions in here, guys. So we're gonna start from the top. Start from the top and work our way down. So this got asked early, and I want to hear your thoughts. Would you give Jalen Hurts and Garrett Wilson for Herbert?
No, I wouldn't. No format. No, I think Hurts is close enough to Herbert where I want Garrett Wilson. And now I know this is Dynasty. And no, I mean, I think Wilson's going to be a stud. I think Hurts is going to be, really good for the foreseeable future. I obviously I don't think he's going to be as good as Herbert, but no chance. No chance would I do that. I would keep Hurts and Garrett Wilson. I would not be packaging those two to slightly upgrade my quarterback spot, especially if I'm rebuilding. Like, no, I'm gonna keep the quarterback in Hurts and keep the wide receiver in Wilson.
It's crazy because if you would have asked me this before week 1, I would have said yes. But right now I will say no as well. I'll keep Hurts and Garrett Wilson too. Garrett Wilson looks like he's going to be a stud wide receiver. And Jalen Hurts has made me eat my words in the past. I didn't talk too poorly about him in the past, but I questioned that he would have a starting job in 2 years ago. And right now he is a top fantasy quarterback. The dude just looks really good. He's got great receivers and will for the next few years. And his rushing upside is just amazing. And it's not like they lean on the run game. Like, he can drop back and throw it. I think he started last game like 9 for 9 at one point. Like, I will take Hurts and Garrett Wilson. It doesn't really make sense for you to give up 2 real young assets for Herbert anyway. Like, right. I would be looking to get rid of it wouldn't hurt me to get rid of Garrett Wilson, but I wouldn't be giving a young quarterback like Hurts in the process with it. Because, Herbert is a top, especially if it's super flex. I'm assuming that's what you're asking this in. Because if it's one quarterback, it's not even close.
I think it's super flex given his next comment when he talks about Lance and Hurts. Like, it sounds super flexy.
Yeah. I would definitely oh my gosh, look how many freaking 5 first-round picks next year. Yeah, you're already, the rebuild's already started. At this point, if you're giving away Hurts and Garrett Wilson, you're overdoing it. Don't give away 2 top assets, and you already have 5 picks. That's overkill at that point. Paul, keep those 2 guys because they're going to help you compete here in the next couple of years, especially with having those 5 first-round picks. Good evening. Good evening to you, Marco. Should I hold on to Pacheco and or Zamir White in half PPR Dynasty, 10 roster spots on the bench? I'd be trying to hold on to both of them. But I would much rather have Zamir White over Pacheco. What about you, Manny?
Yeah, I mean, I would try to hold on to both of them. I think his follow-up question applies. I think it's applicable. Of the three names he lists, what are your thoughts on Danny Gray, Tolbert, and Nico Collins? So I would rather own Pacheco and Zamir White over Danny Gray and Tolbert, but not Nico Collins. So basically, to answer your question, yes, I would try to hold on to Pacheco and Zamir White. However, if I had to drop one to add Nico Collins, I would. But I would not do the same thing for Danny Gray or Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah, I would. Out of those three, I'd rather have Nico Collins as well.
So I think we agree. I mean, I'll go with you and say, yeah. I mean, I'd rather to rank all these five guys. It'd be like Nico, Zamir White, Isaiah Pacheco, and then probably Danny Gray, and then Tolbert last.
I'd probably put Zamir above Nico, personally.
Oh, okay.
Just a little bit. I just think that him being the starter next year is extremely likely. So
yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Let's put Zamir top. I'm good with that.
Allen Robinson. Robinson or Adam Thielen?
Easy. I mean, if Allen Robinson caught that second touchdown that he did catch and the play counted, we wouldn't even be having this question right now. It's easily A-Rod. Did you see that play, by the way? What a bunch of crap was that?
I really didn't know.
Oh, there was a play where Allen Robinson catches his second touchdown pass of the game, and then the refs blow it off because they said they thought someone needed to go in the concussion protocol or some BS. But literally everyone on the field played. It was like it just got like the play just like should have happened. It never did. It was lame.
Weird.
It was lame.
12-team Superflex, 0.5 PPR. Pickett, 223 first and a 23 second for Burrow. I would take Burrow.
Oh, I wouldn't. Oh, I'm surprised you said that. I think Pickett is gonna see some time playing pretty soon. I think his value will increase within the next few weeks. And to lose 2 first and a second in this next draft class, I would rather wait. I think if Pickett starts a little slow and you have a better feel on it and you want to bail at that time, fine. I think it's too early, especially with all these troubles. I mean, Pickett's going to start. But Pickett's going to start soon. I would wait. I think his value is only going to increase within the next month before it decreases. I would not do this trade right now. I would keep the picks and Pickett, see what you got. With that said, Bryce, I mean, I know you want to just take the surer thing and Burrow. I respect that. I think it's a fair trade. I would wait. I wouldn't do this yet.
That's 4 unproven assets for a top dynasty quarterback. Especially with it being super flex, it's just a no-brainer. I'm taking Burrow pretty easily. Like it's not even like Kenny Pickett could play and be terrible after 3 games, and it's like, oh, Steelers still got to look for quarterback.
But if Pickett comes in,
I know, but that's an if, right? I don't want ifs. If I'm getting rid of Burrow, Herbert, Josh Allen, Jalen. All
right, let's put it this way.
There's no ifs in my deals.
Okay, pretend Pickett is as good as or is Mac Jones. Mac Jones, 223 first and a second. Would you do that for Burrow?
No.
You'd rather keep Mac Jones in the picks?
No, I'd rather have Burrow.
You would give Mac Jones 223 first and a 23 second for Burrow?
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool.
That's I mean, Mac Jones is like ceiling is like almost
middling.
Like,
that's why I kind of used him as an example because he's kind of like the most average guy in the world.
Now, if you gave Mac Jones, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, my answer might be different. But you're not going to find those guys on the street. So it might take a few years. Like Burrow's situation is just so good for now and in the foreseeable.
Yeah, future. No, I agree. I mean, I think it's a good conversation. I'd consider the trade. I'd wait a little while though.
with Schultz injury, goodbye time low for tight end team like myself. That's funny because he asked that before we started talking about Dalton Schultz. So yeah, I guess at least in my opinion it was. What was it? Send Gibson, receive Schultz and Melvin. I will take Schultz and Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I think Schultz and Gibson are pretty even just in general. You get Melvin Gordon on top. There's no tight end premium, so that doesn't really weigh it any differently. But I agree with you. I would take the Schultz and Gordon side.
Yep, I agree. Tony, too much of injury prone. I mean, yeah, he was hurt his whole first year and in the offseason, but I'll probably, if he's injured this whole season, I'll label him as injury prone for sure.
Yeah.
CXK said should we expect the Colts to feed Taylor next weekend versus Kansas City Chiefs and beyond? I would expect him to get fed. I would expect him to get fed every week. But it does hurt when Michael Pittman Jr. is hurt. Like, it's not good when your best, two starting receivers with Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. were out this past week. The offense just looked horrendous. And to beat a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, you need your entire playbook open, which involves establishing the run game, especially when that run game has Jonathan Taylor in it. So, yeah, I would expect that for sure.
Welcome back, Anthony. Thank you for the question.
It's Anthony number 2.
I think this really comes down to Pittman. I think if the Colts do not have Pittman again, it's going to be a very similar kind of game for Jonathan Taylor. I'd be very worried. I mean, you have to start him if he's in your lineup, but I mean, you need Pittman out there because otherwise they're just going to stack the box and Matt Ryan. I mean, it's just, they can't operate without any legit wide receivers. I just think a lot of this comes down to Pittman.
Tight end, Kyle Pitts, he's killing me. Yeah, doing it to a lot of people, Randy. That's for damn sure.
I mean, you pretty much have to start him, though, right? I mean, who would you start ahead of him? I mean, it's like you got to do what you got to do.
Unless for some reason you have like him and Kelsey, and you don't need to start both of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
says didn't know why the Colts are falling flat. Matt Ryan should have really helped him. I'll give Matt Ryan a couple more weeks to turn things around. He and the Pittman connection were good, but when you lose your best receiver, like that's just tough. Like, it's tough for anybody who loses it. I think you'll see it. If Godwin and Evans don't play this week, Tom Brady is benchable. If you have certain guys you can put in above him. Like, that's just how, so this is a team sport. Like, one quarterback isn't going to – the quarterback can't do it all by himself. Just got offered Adams and Swift for Kupp and Javonte. Wow.
Davante Adams and DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
For Cooper Kupp and Javonte Williams. I would keep Cooper Kupp and Javonte, but I mean, it's really lateral. I don't like doing trades like that. It doesn't really make your team any better. I mean, Adams and Kupp are virtually the same. Swift and Javonte are virtually the same. I mean, I think I would try to find a better deal that would make your team better as opposed to that one.
Yeah, it's like both Swift and Javonte are going to benefit once their counterparts, like once Jamal Williams is gone, I think Swift benefits more for red zone touches. Once Melvin Gordon's gone, Javonte is going to benefit and get more touches than he is now. So it's
of these, like if I had to pick one, it's Kupp and Javonte. For me, it's Kupp and Javonte.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree because honestly, the only guy out of these four that I can see consistently putting up over 20 points every week is Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and who could potentially have a bad game? We just saw it last week with Davante Adams in a good matchup. So
right, exactly. Could Kyle Pitts turn around come as soon as this weekend versus Seattle? By far the best matchup. Kyle Pitts turnaround could come around any week. Like, I think we're just going to see inconsistency with his performances because of the quarterback situation right now. Like, Marcus Mariota is not like a polished passer who's going to like feed multiple guys. Like, one guy's going to do well one week, one guy's going to do well the next week. And like, just last week it happened to be Drake London. The week before that was, well, I guess the week before that, they really just ran the ball the most of the time with Cordarrelle Patterson. So it's like, there's really just one guy every week in that Falcons offense that I expect to do well. And it could be Drake London, Cordarrelle Patterson, or Kyle Pitts. You just got to hope that it's the guy you're starting. Like, that's just how that team is right now until
Yeah,
I see a better quarterback situation.
go back and watch this game. I mean, it's like the defense was just like blanketing Pitts on like every play, and it's part of the reason why I think London had such a good game was just because they were just letting him catch the ball. They just didn't want Pitts to beat him. I mean, I guess it can work, and they won, but man, it was a close game. I think Pitts is going to have more opportunities this season. Again, I think, like we said earlier, I think he's a good trade target. I really do. So I wouldn't be too worried about it. I think if other people are worried about it, this is the time to get him before he blows up.
I agree. Should I pick up Mostert, Beasley, or Noah Brown for any of those players? I'm assuming he's talking about when he was talking about Nico Collins, Danny Gray, and Tolbert. I would rather have Nico Collins than all of those guys and Zamir White than all of those guys for sure.
I would rather have
Jaco.
I would rather have Mostert based on his usage last game was very encouraging. He was basically the lead back last week over Chase Edmonds.
Even in Dynasty, you'd rather have him over those three guys?
Oh, in Dynasty. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about redraft.
Yeah, there's no way. And redraft, I definitely would. In Dynasty, I'd much rather have those three. In
redraft, I'd rather have Mostert. Thank you for reminding me that we try to focus on Dynasty here. In redraft, it's so hard because it's like most of these weekly moves off the waiver wire, it's like it has to be a redraft league. You know what I mean? Like he's saying pick up Mostert. Like I'm assuming Mostert is owned in most Dynasty leagues, but I guess not. Maybe not. So in redraft, it's easily Mostert over all those guys. In Dynasty, it's Isaiah Pacheco, Zamir White, and Nico Collins.
Not in that order, though. You had Nico Collins, Zamir, and then Isaiah. Right?
No, I changed my mind. It's in the order in Dynasty would be Zamir White, Isaiah Pacheco, and then Nico Collins.
Okay. Caden, the Colts fan, was the one with the lateral trade. The lateral trade offer. He said, "My running back 2 is Penny." But
he took your advice, taking RB2 as Penny. Oh no!
He said he would throw in Gabe Davis.
No.
Well, the problem is your Penny continues to be your running back too, right? You're trading away. You're trading away. I'm assuming you're the one trading away Cooper Kupp, or I'm sorry, Devontae Adams and Swift, right? You might have to clarify in there. I can't tell. It just says, oh no, he got offered Adams and Swift. So I would keep Kupp and Javonte.
Yeah.
But would you do Adams, Swift, and Gabe Davis for Kupp and
Javonte? Yeah. If I can get Gabe Davis on top, then I would do it because then that would make my team better.
Yeah. I would do that. I would do that in probably Dynasty and redraft format.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So I think adding Gabe Davis would do it for me, Caden. And then last question.
Ooh, Scott, you barely got in here.
Yeah, he's getting just go. Oh wait, you're getting so one more time. You would be getting Gabe Davis, Adams, and Swift, or would you be getting Gabe Davis, Kupp, and Javonte? Just put it there in the comments. Did I make a good trade? Justin Jefferson, Kirk, and Najee for Jamar Chase, Hurts, and James Conner.
Justin Jefferson and Chase cancel each other out.
So it's pretty much Hurts and Conner for Kirk and Najee. I'll take the Hurts and Conner side.
Kirk and Najee Harris or Hurts and James Conner.
I think Najee Harris is overrated. Like I just think that he benefited so much from Ben Roethlisberger dinking and dunking to him all the time.
In redraft, I like the Hurts.
Definitely taking the Hurts side.
Conner side.
Oh yeah.
The hookup for me is if it's Dynasty 1 QB, I'm gonna go with the Najee Jefferson Kirk side.
Scott, he's commenting right now. Is this Dynasty or redraft?
Yeah.
Because this is the league you draft every year. And you don't keep anybody.
And we got a response from Caden here.
Yeah, he says he is getting the Adams. He's getting the Adams side. So Adams, Gabe Davis, and Swift. I would take that for Kupp and Javonte.
I agree.
especially if it's redraft format.
Either way,
probably what I'm expecting.
Either way, I would do it.
Okay, so he says it's redraft. Yeah, it's Jamar Chase, Hurts, and James Conner for me, for sure.
Agreed.
Yep. All right, that's it. It's 9:05. Perfect timing. Thanks everyone for being in the chat, asking questions. Makes our time a lot faster, a lot more fun for us. We'll be back next week with. I'm sure we'll talk about some week 3 stuff, and then we'll figure out a fun topic for everybody. Maybe some guys that we're trying to trade away. Maybe something like that. So we'll be on at the same time next week, and we will see you guys next week. See ya.
Night.